thinking about your suggestion, about remote and whatnot. When Waz couldn't come, I thought, oh, Wendy's going to be upset we didn't use her suggestion. I figured he'd do that,
Oh yeah, well, because you'd hope he would be, right?
Yeah.
I'm so glad he is, because it would have been really sad for him to miss the rest of his tenure, because like
Oh, I know. Yeah.
we're like you can physically talk and it's just like
Yeah.
Okay. Just give it to you like right there. That way they can't hear you. You can just lean forward a little bit or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, 6 o'clock.
Okay. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the regular council meeting, November 25, 2024. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Council members Hanschel,
Here.
Fowler,
Here.
Wilms,
Here.
Wozniak,
Here.
and Hughes.
yes, here.
Snow is absent.
Thank you. First item is citizen input. There's a 3-minute per person time limit to address the council on any topic of that person's choosing. If you come up and speak at the microphone here at the lectern. The first person is Gordon Brown of 4 Kirkpatrick Place.
We were just talking about that. Yeah, props here. Gordon Brown for Kirkpatrick Point. I'm here about large cycling events that use our mountain biking trails, specifically lifetime events. We have observed several negatives from them over the past 2 years that I've been here. Today I'm here about the signs. We have 24 different signs that they have left all over our trails, and that event has been about 6 weeks ago. 74 flags, and probably about 100 different nutrition packets all over our trails, which are usually pristine outside of these events. On November 1, Sean Thurman of Lifetime contacted me because his organization was getting some heat online about using excessive amounts of orange paint to mark hazards on the trails instead of using flags or orange ribbon. During that initial exchange, I mentioned that there were signs and flags still on the trail. He asked for locations. We've had 13 different conversations in this regard. Since that November conversation, the exact locations of every item has been provided in each piece of leftover material. Sean Thurman has promised 3 times via text on November 1st, November 3rd, and November 19th, and once on the phone on November 8th, to either get them personally or have somebody from Trailblazers go and get them. Sunday, when I was out for a ride, I noticed the signs were still up, and after my ride, I drove to each location, gathered up the signs you see here, plus some more. It took me about less than an hour, so that's how little they cared about making things right. During our November 1 conversation, Sean Thurman stated that his goal was to improve community engagement and partnership, but after being after him time and time again for the past 25 days, that proves to be nothing but words with no action. I learned from my time in cycling Kansas City, to helping put on events just like this, that until the cities make it punitive and expensive, nothing changes. The hostility I felt from 2 cities outside of Kansas City was amazing. I investigated it, and it was due to repeated disregard for the city's guidelines. Not until he made it legally punitive and painful and expensive did cycling Kansas City change their behavior. I believe events need our trails more than we need events. When you consider over 1,000 entries for this one event at a price of about $100 to $135 a piece, that's a pretty good chunk of change. And basically all they did was threw about $2,000 towards our trail adoption program. And I guess that's supposed to cover all the transgressions. In addition to signs and flags, I believe that the ride organizers should be responsible for picking up their riders' litter. You know, a lot of the riders, they take their nutrition and they just throw it on the ground. Don't ask me why they behave like that. I filled my waste pack, you know, we carry our tools and stuff. I filled that full 2 days after the event, just on the back 40 side alone. My suggestion, which I've already heard there's some conversation going on about it, would be like a $5,000 damage / litter deposit, and they have 72 hours to clean up the trail, and after that, everything starts having a penalty to it. I certainly do appreciate y'all's service and your time.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Paul Maxwell of 19 Dalton Drive.
Thank you. My voice is not very good. I apologize. I'm going to hand you some pictures of a pickleball court that was built.
We have one, put one over
Go
there if
ahead.
you would, please.
He's looking. Go ahead. There's a pickleball court built at 21 Dalton Drive. And there are plenty of pictures right there that show obvious light trespass. I know we have a new light trespass ordinance, but the lights that are shining on our house and across the golf course and on other neighbors are not security lights or lights that light your sidewalk. I've called the code enforcement, and of course, nothing's been done. I also called the code enforcement about the noise that emanates from that pickleball court between 8 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night. And I've called 4 times. I've had 2 responses. Officer Strong came out, and after dozens of trespassing into my yard, he told me that it was okay for these people to trespass into my yard, that it was similar to a hunter shooting a deer, that he could go into somebody else's field to retrieve his deer. And of course, I disagreed with that. But sometimes these people retrieve their balls, sometimes they don't. Second time, Officer Hickson came out, and he informed me that any disturbance of the peace was just simply my opinion. We were standing about 100 feet from the pickleball court with the lights blazing over the back of the house and the people yelling. And he informed me that he'd been told not to enforce any code violations at 21 Dalton Drive. And this is advice from the city attorney, apparently. I met with Scott Vanetta and, Biancardi, and they told me that I could shine any light I wanted to onto this house, and it wouldn't bother them. And they also told me that Biancardi told me I could bang trash cans together out there until 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night, and that would be okay. But what I don't understand is one of the reasons they used for not talking to these people was the Fourth Amendment, which is a search and seizure amendment of the Constitution. I don't understand that. I would like to have somebody explain that to me. Officer Hickson handed me a copy of the noise ordinance as I left and said it doesn't say pickleball. So it obviously violates the city code. No one will enforce it, and I don't know why.
Okay, thank you, sir, appreciate it. Now is the time for council reply, if anyone in council wants to speak. Wendy?
So 2 things. Mr. Brown, first, thank you for being proactive with our trails and being a concerned citizen and resident in our community. I appreciate you. We all appreciate you. And like you said, this did kind of spur some conversations on with our trails coordinator and trails manager about what we can do in the future to make this be preventable in the future. So hopefully we'll get some balls rolling and get that taken care of. And then Mr., I'm going to butcher your last name.
Maxwell.
Maxwell? So sorry. I just wanted some clarification. So what are the quiet hours in our ordinance? Is it?
Well, it doesn't really work that way. I mean, 11 o'clock is a time in which is in there, but I want to address a couple of things.
Okay.
One, I haven't told anybody not to enforce anything. I don't know where that's coming from. Number two, he was talking about a new light trespass ordinance. I'm unfamiliar with any new light trespass ordinance that you've passed. There isn't one. So I can tell you those two things. No, it doesn't say pickleball in the ordinance, but there are certain things in the ordinance which are violations. That's not one of them. So I am aware of the fact that the gentleman, I spoke to an attorney who represents the owner of the pickleball court. He indicates that a lawsuit has been filed, which is exactly where this needs to be handled. And so I'm not going to speak to the merits of it one way or the other, but I do know that the parties are involved in civil litigation regarding a private nuisance at this time.
Thank you.
Doug?
Oh, yeah, Gordon, I wasn't aware of any, things going off the trails with, things being left behind. That is really troubling. The signs and stuff, I know that's bad, but people just throwing their trash on the ground, that's not acceptable. And we just hired a new trails coordinator, ours left, so I'm sure we can have some conversations with him and he can do some better coordination, with these events, hopefully, and get that taken care of. Yeah, it's completely unnecessary. And so anyway, hope we can address that. Paul, I just look at your photos. I don't understand, really how one neighbor can impose that on another one. I really can't. They're doing it, and I don't know that we have any way to rectify it as a city right now. But that's troubling to me. So, is this a permanent residence or is it a short-term? I just want to know. That's all. Is it a short-term rental or is it a permanent residence?
It's permanent residence.
Okay.
I document all my conversations with the officers and the people in the police department, and they've told me they've been advised by Mr. Kelly on how to treat this.
Yeah.
And I've had 2 or 3 people tell me that.
But sir, we're not really allowed to have a conversation here. I just wanted to know if it was a permanent residence or if it was. Okay. I don't know where we go from here, but I know somebody's filed a civil lawsuit, and I hope we get settled favorably. So.
I have the code to enforce the noise ordinance.
Yeah, sir, you have to have a conversation maybe with the mayor offline on that.
I will.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Larry Wilms?
I guess I'd like to thank Mr. Brown for bringing to our attention the debris that was left out there. And it is annoying to do that. I thought we had a deposit requirement for use of the trails, and I don't know how that's set up, but one of the suggestions I might make is that schedule be based upon the entry fee and the anticipated number of persons expected to participate formally in the program. That would give you a basis for having a larger deposit for a larger event. I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but I think that might be something that could be workable. But a schedule based upon the fee size and the number of participants would set a very big activity with a high fee, like suggested by Mr. Brown here. They had 1,000 people at $100 a throw. That's a piece of change. So the deposit might be higher on that than something that was $10 an entry fee and you got 100 people. So, Mr. Maxwell, I'm not sure where you might go. It looks like it's a property owner issue between you and your neighbor. It's like somebody makes a lot of noise and it's not extreme for the code, but it's a nuisance because of the time of the day that it's done. So it's just a neighbor to neighbor type of solution that you need to take. So I don't know if he's left or not. That's all.
Okay. Next, thank you to all the speakers tonight. The next item on the agenda is action on the minutes. Approval of the October 28, 2024 minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve, but I have a comment that I'm glad we don't do our police enforcement the same way we do code enforcement, because we would probably have a lot greater unsafe community, because if you saw a driver that was weaving all over the road until you had a complaint, the officer wouldn't pull him over even if he saw it, so,
So you're
Just a-
making a motion to approve the minutes?
yes.
Okay.
Second.
But I had a comment to go
That
with
was a
it.
motion by Mr. Wilms and a second by Craig Hanschel. Roll call vote.
Council members Hughes,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanschel,
Yes.
Snow is absent.
Motion carried, 5-0. Next matter on the agenda is the financial report for the period ending September 30, 2024. The total revenues are up 2.1% from last year and are also ahead of budget. City sales tax is up 6.3% compared to last year and ahead of budget. County sales tax is up 0.4%, 0.4%. So it's been consistent with what this is year-to-date numbers, consistent with what we've seen recently, where the county sales tax is struggling some and the city's doing pretty well. On the operating expenditure side, we are 1.4 million under budget through September 30, and trying hard to keep that up for the rest of the year. So, so far, the financials look good. Continue to see a little weakness on the county side, but that seems to be a consistent trend. Right now, I'd like to entertain a motion to suspend the rules of order and procedure to allow all ordinances on the agenda to be read by title only.
Yep, so moved.
That's Mr. Fowler and Mr. Hanschel. Roll call vote.
Council members Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanschel,
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. First one, an unfinished business, is an ordinance amending various sections of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista to provide for renaming of the Department of Community Development Services to the Department of Planning and Development, providing for reorganization, declaring an emergency, and for other purposes. Staff requests move the third and final reading.
This is
Mr.
the
Fowler.
second reading of this
Okay,
ordinance.
this is the second reading, correct.
I have comments, yes.
Mr. Fowler?
Yeah, I would just ask that if Jason can clarify, like exactly what we're voting on, so we don't get, kind of off on side conversations about this. And
Well, in the packet is, of course, the agenda, which incorporates an exhibit, which is about 5 or 6 pages of red line modifications. The modifications are in red. So on the first page, we change some of the, about 3 different things, and I can let Taylor talk in more detail, where we say instead of the Community Development Services Department or Director doing something, we say the mayor or the mayor's designee doing something. And it applies to a few things. Portable storage containers, ordinances we have about that, ordinances we have about our deed restrictions for additional rooms on new construction of houses on terms of septic. That had reference to CDS director, now it's going to say mayor or mayor's designee. Most of these changes, you'll look, change the name of the department from planning, building, and code enforcement to planning and development. And in fact, some of these changes weren't made when we changed it to community development services. So those were missed prior to that. So it's bringing all those, changing the name back to planning and, or changing it to planning and development. That's mainly what this does. I would let Taylor address you with any particular changes, but it does not adopt an organizational chart. It simply changes in certain parts of the code where it gave certain authority to the CDS director, saying that is now the mayor or the mayor's designee, which would allow the mayor to decide who would be in charge of handling that particular duty. And those are, as I said, they're all in the packet, and you've had an opportunity to view those. So that's really all we're talking about.
So we're basically, we're going to implement a new name.
The main
We're
thing is
replacing
you're
it.
renaming that department.
Right.
And you are, and there are less than a handful of circumstances where we're gonna just say the mayor or the mayor's designee rather than the director of that department.
Right.
Okay? But I mean, obviously, I'm not going through it word by
No, that's
word, you
fine.
can see it, but.
So name change, organizational changes as necessary, and they're not necessarily specifically spelled out here.
Right.
And really, those are kind of like the two things,
That's,
right?
that's basically it. Now, I will say, because the question did come up before, you as a council do have legal authority to determine a structure of city government. You can do that. That's not what this is attempting to do.
Right.
And my suggestion on anything regarding that would be approach that fresh from a whole sort of a whole view perspective with something that does just that, and then make whatever changes need to be made to do that. So, but this is, and I'll let the mayor and Taylor speak to this exactly, but this is to fix some problems more than it is to try and redo anything, and to sort of bring things into a mechanism where they're gonna work well. That they may already be kind of working well that way, but in order for them to, by code, work well and with the way they wanna structure things.
Yeah, I think a little part of the rub, you know, when we were talking during the work session last Monday, is some of these things were already put in motion before, you know, they came before the council. But all I want to say is, you know, so it would have been nice to be informed a little bit earlier, right? Before, because we're kind of like put the cart before the horse a little bit. So we've had some time to review it. I've had some conversations with the mayor about it. Went and visited with Taylor today, and she took me through, you know, the changes in the personnel and how they're going to be aligned and everything. And so, you know, all I ask is, and again, I mentioned this at the work session last Monday, is if we get into this and we see or find out that something isn't working, you know, let's give ourselves like 6 months, let's make an adjustment, let's fix it before it becomes a problem. That's the only thing I would ask at this point. Otherwise, I'm supportive of this. The mayor is the CEO, he's the manager of the city, he runs it, and he has the ability and the authority to make changes to the organizational charts. So that's his job. And so I think I'm going to leave my comments at that, and tonight, I mean, I'm prepared to vote for it and probably move this thing forward.
Mr. Wilms?
I guess I have no problem about redoing the title for the department that's referred to in the code. That seems to have a lot of merit. On the surface, however, the HR put out an org chart to say this is how the staff are going to get moved around. And while we don't use a formal org chart in the city, it still it shows the intent of what this code change is supposed to do. One of the things is to bring the building permits group under the fire department, and that's, I think, good on the surface, but my personal belief is that it needs to be under the direction of the chief building official, which is how the fire code volume 2 and volume 3 is put together, even though under the big umbrella it is a part of the fire code, because all of them have the objective of making properties and buildings safe. And that's not the org chart further shows the development of a compliance department or division in the new group. And I guess in my experience, when you have issues that relate to one department and there's violations of that code, it's that department or that group that actually has the staff that manages the projects go out and administer the coordination of compliance. It's good training for the staff, and it provides good continuity of relationship with the development. Um, It gives the staff the opportunity to learn firsthand things that can go wrong or go south, and allows them during that implementation or correction process, the firsthand experience of directing and guiding developers or contractors to comply with the code. And I'm assuming, well, I don't know that we have all that many commercial issues that we deal with, but it would seem that most of those for development compliance would be not residential, not single family, because those would either fall under the chief building official or the code enforcement folks. I've not seen that we have that many development projects that's going to be an overload for our planning staff to enforce. If those are, in fact, the planning and zoning codes that's in violation, I think the planning and zoning staff should be doing that as a part of their duties rather than having a separate person assigned. If it has to do with a code compliance issue, it would be referred to the engineer. If it has to do with site erosion control or other issues, it would be referred to the community development official or the city, the chief building official if it had to do with a single family property, because that's where those are enforced. It's not a code issue that you referred to code enforcement. So there are a number of things in here that are kind of arbitrarily deferred to different departments, which I think need to be specific rather than general, especially issues relating to factors under the building code or under the residential code, which is a part of the fire code. Those need to go to the chief building official rather than to the mayor or his designee. I think it needs to be directed where it belongs in the department that it comes from. So I'll be voting no in support of this document. I'm not against the name change, but there's a lot of other things in here that I think need to be tuned up to make it effective and efficient for us. Thank you.
Mayor?
Craig?
Okay. Taylor, would you mind coming up? Because I have questions for Taylor. And I'm going to start off by saying I missed the work session last Monday. That was a scheduling issue on my side. I made a mistake. So that being said, when this initially came through, there was no objection, right? There, no discussion, no question about what was going on.
If you're asking at the first work session, was there any discussion? There really wasn't any discussion at the first work session that we had this on.
And that was back in October.
Correct.
And it was explained thoroughly. I mean, I vaguely remember that we sat there for a 10, 15-minute explanation. I think we went verbatim through the whole thing that Jason was getting at was 5 pages of laying it out. And basically this was just reorganizing the position of, is it 2 people or 1 person? 1 person under.
Essentially what it's doing is just renaming the department and then taking 3 other sections of code to make it match the building code, the supplemental building code in our local ordinance. So currently right now our supplemental building code is chapter 103 of the development ordinances. That right now already says the city or the mayor, his designee. And so there were some stragglers and outliers outside of chapter 103 that refer to building permits or permit-related items such as the temporary storage container item. That's a common permit that's issued by the permit technicians. And so that was just to be aligned with chapter 103. Chapter 103, the entire chapter, all provisions already allow the mayor to designate who he wants to be in charge of chapter 103. So this is just matching that, as well as a few clerical things that Jason mentioned. There were a few that we missed in June of 2023 that still call us the Planning and Code Enforcement Department. We haven't been that in a long time. So with this, with the permit and allowing the mayor to finish designating the rest of all of the permits, 4 people will be moved over to the building division. So right now, we have a building division under me, and we have a building division under Chief Sims. And typically, those are together, so this would move those 4 back with the other remaining amounts in the main portion of the building division under Chief Sims.
What, has that always been the setup? I mean,
No. So before June of 2023, the chief building official was with the building inspectors in the building division. The plans examiner reported to the chief building official. But in June 2023, when we had the reorganization, the CBO and the building inspectors went to fire. The plans examiner and permit tech stayed with CDS.
So prior to 2023, it's always been that way,
They were together.
always?
Not always, like since the department has been a department. Because before, we get into history, we were just planning and code enforcement when we were originally created.
Okay,
And then under the previous director, it was all brought in under one department. The code was changed after we got our previous logo, our 3-color block logo. They went ahead and reorganized, renamed to Community Development Services, and then that's when they were all placed together.
okay. So prior to 2023, there's never been an issue, ish. I mean, now the issue is that you have
We have 2
4
building divisions.
Right.
We're trying to get them under one,
Under
operating as
one
one.
umbrella, okay. And that makes sense. And this is not your creation, this is just for efficiency and.
Just to clean up, just a
Okay.
logistics efficiency cleanup request, so.
Okay, and the renaming is Community Development Services, is that a good identifier for what the planning department does, or does the new name really?
I think
kind
the
of-
new name is more correct and is what we are. We are literally the Planning and Development Department. Even when we were originally named Community Development, we never had a Community Development Division, which focused on like HUD grants or CBDG grants, things like that, which is more typical in other cities. If they are named Community Development, there's typically some type of aspect like that involved. However, we've never had anything like that here. We enforce planning, zoning, and development ordinances.
Okay,
So.
so just to kind of wrap it up, Jason, I mean, at a city level, state level, where we are in compliance with the state laws,
Yes.
I
We've
mean-
adopted
approving this
the
doesn't.
state fire code, which includes 3 different parts. One is fire, one is building, and those all refer to the building official, who's a designated person, and we've gone all over this. We are operating consistent with state law now. This is a cleanup related more to ordinances we've adopted separate from the building code,
Okay.
but so that it folds together in terms of who's doing those inspections and where it needs to fall. Am I saying that correctly, basically?
Yeah, and I would add on that it's just more in line with the.
I mean,
building
I
code
think
law.
that the overarching point here is that if you approve this, things are gonna work just the way they did before.
Right,
Except we're just gonna make sure that the Ts are crossed and the Is are dotted.
well, for the sake
But
of,
you all have the authority to make changes to that, but we're not trying to do that here.
for the sake of transparency, I just want to make sure it's explained, because I know it seems implied that something's going on, but we're just basically going back to the old system. We're operating under the same system that we've had in place-ish, and just changing the name of Community Development Services into what it actually is. So, okay, with that, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
That would be out of
Or,
order.
I make a motion to go to,
We need to, if you need to go to third and final, so you need to move to suspend the rules and go to third and
yeah,
final reading.
I make a motion to suspend the rules and go to third and final.
Second.
That was Mr. Hansel and Mr. Wozniak for a motion to suspend the rules and go to third and final. Roll call vote.
Council members Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
No.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanschel,
Yes.
Snow absent, and Hughes.
Yes.
Motion carried 4-1. I'll read the ordinance for third and final. Amending various sections of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista to provide for renaming of the Department of Community Development Services to the Department of Planning and Development, providing for reorganization, declaring an emergency, and for other purposes. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
That was Mr. Hanschel and Mr. Wozniak. Roll call vote.
Council members Wilms,
No.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanschel,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
and Wozniak.
Yes.
Motion carried 4-1. And Jason, I think we need to do something for the emergency clause,
You'll
right?
need to entertain a motion to approve the emergency clause a second, and then we'll need to have a vote.
Yeah. Is there a motion to approve the emergency clause?
Yeah, and you know, the reasons for emergency clause, it's going to help in terms of budgeting for 2025 and getting everything put in place before we get into the year, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
That was Mr. Fowler and Mr. Hanschel. You already had it. So. Roll call vote.
Council members Hughes,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanschel,
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. Now for a new business, there's an ordinance amending section 103-189, additional requirements, permitting in the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista to require septic permits prior to installation, repair, or replacement of any part of a septic system not related to new construction and for other purposes. And staff requests move to third and final, but is there any discussion?
I mean, we had extensive conversation on this at the work session last Monday. I don't know if we really need to reiterate it. You know, we need a method, you know, to kind of track what's going on, being sure things are done correctly, et cetera. Because, you know, if there's one thing I could say about septic, I'm glad that we continue to have this conversation and elevate, you know, the visibility of how important it is to maintain these systems correctly. And of course, if they do have to be repaired or fixed or whatever, you want it done in the right manner, making sure they're done correctly for people. So, yeah, I'm supportive. So, yeah, this is the first, right, reading.
Yeah.
So I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and move to third and final.
Second.
That was Mr. Fowler and
Got a
Mr.
comment.
Hanschel. Mr. Wozniak wanted to say something.
Is there going to be, or something about if an installer does it and doesn't report it? Or say somebody gets cute and does it on a weekend when nobody knows? Are we going to hold the installers responsible if they get around this and don't report to us what they're doing?
Well, to the same extent we would with a plumber that needed a plumbing permit to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's just there's a way to make sure they don't get around us.
Yeah, I guess it would be the same infraction as anybody not getting a subcontracting permit then.
Or plumbing permit,
failure.
whenever they need
Yeah.
a plumbing permit.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of the same like whenever you have your heating and air system upgraded. I mean, you're supposed to get a permit for that as well, right? And
I'm gonna have to defer to the technical people about what you can do before you get a, without
But
a
I'm just
permit
saying, right,
versus.
it's up to the
Homeowners
installer.
can do things sometimes that
Yeah.
contractors would have to have a permit to do and all that. So technical things like that, I'd have to defer to somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Anyway, this is an attempt to step in that direction, I guess. Larry Wilms?
I'd like to compliment Ms. Robertson on her thoroughness and completeness of putting that package together. She did a very excellent job. Recite some interesting facts in there about what the potential impact is every year because of the number of buildings that go up or are affected by new construction. And it's about 73% of what they issue is on septic, so it does have an impact. Now, new construction is different than rehabilitation or repairs, but we know for a fact that over the past years since we've become a city, that steel septic tanks were installed, rusted out, failed, became a safety hazard, and were replaced, but we really have no inclination as to how many that's gone through that process, I think. In my neighborhood, I know mine has, my neighbor's has been replaced, but on the whole, there are still many of them, I'm sure, that are steel that have not been replaced and are potential safety hazard, or could be, because there's no structure there to hold the tank together. So I think it's a good move that we track that. And other repairs too, if there's a problem with the seepage bed, a clean out, a distribution box, because it's fallen out of level, it affects the performance of that bed, will cause it to prematurely fail. So the repairs like that allow us to be informed about how significant or how poor the construction may have been originally. So I think it's a good program. I support it.
Sir, point of
Wendy?
order, point of order. I think we have a motion open, do we?
Right, we
Yeah,
have a
to go to
motion and
third
a
and final.
second, but I wasn't sure, was the motion Fowler or,
Move.
I did.
Third and final.
Second.
and second was?
Mr.
Craig,
Hanchel.
uh-huh.
So, yeah, I think we can have a roll call vote on the motion to go to third and final.
To suspend the rules.
Suspend the rules and go to third and final.
Okay. Council members Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanschel,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
and Wozniak.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. I'll read it for a third time.
I'll make a motion to,
And it needs to be read for the third time first.
it needs to be read.
Has to be read for the third
Amending
time.
section 103-189, additional requirements permitting of the Code of Ordinances, the City of Bella Vista to require septic permits prior to installation, repair, or replacement of any part of the septic system not related to new construction and for other purposes. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
That was Mr. Wilms and Mr. Wozniak. Roll call vote on the motion to approve.
Council members Fowler,
Yes.
Hanschel,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
and Wilms.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0.
I'll make a motion to adopt the emergency clause.
There's not an emergency clause on
That's
this
the
one.
next one.
Yeah, he didn't, there wasn't an emergency clause in that one.
So we can't do it?
Well, it gets a little procedurally complicated. What we would have to do is in writing, we'd have to have the emergency clause. It's really already, I would say at this point, no, yes, it is too late to do that because we
Okay.
can't amend it once it's already been voted and adopted.
Gotcha.
So
All right.
I'm going to have to say no on that one.
So when will it be effective?
60 days
60
Okay.
days.
from publication.
Okay, thank you. Next was an ordinance amending section 12-1, providing potable water to locations with failing septic systems of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista to provide further circumstances constituting septic failure, declaring an emergency, and for other purposes. And this is another one, staff request, move to third and final.
I make a motion to suspend the rules and move to third and final.
Second.
That was Mr. Fowler and Mr. Hanchel. Roll call vote.
Council members Hanschel,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
and Fowler.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. I'll read it for a third time. Amending section 12-1, providing potable water to locations with failing septic systems of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista to provide further circumstances constituting septic failure, declaring an emergency, and for other purposes.
Move to approve.
Second.
That was Mr. Wilms and Mr. Hanchel. Roll call vote to approve the ordinance.
Council members Hughes,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
and Hanschel.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. And this one does have an emergency clause, so
So moved.
Second.
That was Mr. Wilms and Mr. Fowler. Motion to have the emergency clause. Roll call vote?
Council members Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanschel,
Yes.
and Hughes.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. Thank you for that. Next one is an ordinance enacting a new section 2-202, Deputy City Clerk of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista to allow the city clerk to appoint a deputy and for other purposes. And staff request move the third and final.
A motion to suspend the rules and go to third and final?
Second.
That was Mr. Hanschel and Mr. Fowler. Roll call vote on the motion to suspend the rules and move to third and final.
Council members Hanschel,
Yes.
absent. Hughes,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
and Fowler.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. I'll read it for a third and final time. Enacting a new section 2-202, Deputy City Clerk of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista to allow the city clerk to appoint a deputy and for other purposes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
That was Mr. Hanschel and Mr. Wilms. A roll call vote on the motion to approve.
Council members Hughes,
Yes.
Wozniak,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
and Hanschel.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. Next one is a resolution authorizing participation of the City of Bella Vista in Benefit Program 4 of the Arkansas Local Police and Fire Retirement System, LOPFI, for eligible employees who are firefighters or police officers. Glenda Kelderman, our HR director, is not here today because of health emergency in the family. But she did explain at the work session that our current system, we pay $6 a month. And under this new proposal, we would pay $26 a month. This is for part-time police and fire, and a volunteer, I should say, police and fire. We have one police and one fire who currently qualify. And, moving to this would give them a better benefit pension-wise. We felt it was quite a good deal because it was only $20 a month, and they're working as volunteers, so.
Well, and additionally, I believe that if a volunteer is currently like a member of LOPFI or benefiting from LOPFI, we can't compensate them at all. But if they are LOPFI, then this is going to help them out, to your point, with a little bit bump in their pension.
Yeah.
It's a very nominal cost. Even if we had more than 2 people total, it would be a real benefit for us because I think they know what they're doing and they know what their job is. So it's not a train. It's very efficient and effective to have the volunteers there because it's really a help to the departments. So
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
That was Mr. Fowler and Mr. Wozniak. Roll call vote.
Council members Hanschel,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Yes.
Wozniak, Wilms,
yes.
and Fowler.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. Next one's a resolution amending the City Council Rules of Order and Procedure to modify the order of voting so that members are rotated per meeting rather than per vote, making clarifying changes and for other purposes. So this was today's meeting is a good example where she has to ask people in a different order every time we vote. And most of the votes are pretty routine, so it struck me as a lot of extra work. Just do the same order that whole meeting, and the next meeting do a different order, but and go meeting by meeting instead of changing it every time we vote, since we seem to just have a few controversial votes normally. Probably less than one a meeting, actually. So, Larry?
I guess the most difficult will be when we have some uncomfortable ordinances or rules that we're considering to be the first all the time for that meeting where we have 2 or 3 or 4 items that may be not palatable to be the first one to vote on them. So I agree with doing this. It's going to make the clerk's job easier and simpler, so.
Motion to approve.
Second.
That was Mr. Fowler and Mr. Hansel. Roll call vote.
Council members Wozniak,
Yes?
Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanschel,
Yes.
and Hughes.
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0. The next one is a resolution setting the meeting schedule of the Bella Vista City Council for the calendar year 2025. And the schedule's attached. It's pretty much the usual we usually do. It's usually work sessions, 3rd Monday. Regular meetings are the 4th Monday. And then there's exceptions come up around Memorial Day. Christmas, we usually move things up a week. And there's always Martin Luther King Day and President's Day.
January and
Yeah,
February.
in January and February, so.
Move to approve.
Second?
It was Mr. Wilms and Mr. Wozniak. Roll call vote.
Council members Wilms,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Hanschel,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
and Wozniak, yes.
Motion carried 5-0. Announcements of upcoming meetings, December 5 at 3 p.m. in the training room is a budget work session for City Council. Next City Council work session is 5:30 p.m. Monday, December 9 at Bella Vista Training Room. Next City Council regular meeting is 6 p.m. Monday, December 16 at Bella Vista District Court. Planning Commission work session is canceled for December. Planning Commission regular meetings 4:30 p.m. or immediately following the Board of Zoning Adjustment, Monday, December 9 at Bella Vista District Court. And the Board of Construction Appeals is 3 p.m. Tuesday, December 10, if necessary, at Fire Station Number 4 Conference Room, 1639 Forest Hills Boulevard. So if there's, Larry Wilms?
First, I'd like to thank Taylor for having an open house this morning. It was nice to meet the new employees that she's hired, that we have in the department. And it was nice to see the new digs, even though they're temporary and not new, they're different. So I think it'll work out for at least a little while.
Yeah,
Mayor, I just
Jason.
wanted, because it came up earlier, the issue of the littering and the special event. Our ordinance currently requires a $200 deposit toward cleanup costs, and which is refundable, but if it's not cleaned up, then it's not refundable. And I don't know the status of that $200. Sounds like it probably should not have been refunded if the situation is what we heard, but I just wanted to let you know you do have that provision in code right now, so. We do
okay,
have a little, we at least have that where we could fall back on.
okay, thank you. I was gonna mention about the city offices that people are quite happy about all being in one place and having the planning and the permit folks and everything over there with us, so it's gonna be a good thing, I think. So, thank you very much. With that, we're adjourned.